We know that humans lived in the Americas more than 20,000 years ago. Footprints preserved in ancient lakebed mud in the desert prove it. But one question has remained mysterious. How did they haul their world with them? At that time, the Americas were a harsh and unforgiving place of frozen plains, wild forests, treacherous wetlands, and towering ice. Various species of animals roamed, yet not one of them was domesticated. The first domesticated animals would not appear for thousands of years. And vehicle or wheel technology would not emerge on Earth for thousands of years after these ancient footsteps either. Humanity had no carts, no horses, no oxen, only survival instinct. And life demanded movement. These early people had not yet settled into farming villages or built the first hints of civilization. They wandered following herds, water sources, and seasonal resources. To survive, they had to travel, not just once, but constantly, carrying everything they owned across dangerous landscapes where food shifted with climate and migration, and where staying in one place for too long meant hunger or worse. So did Ice Age families carry firewood, meat, hides, stone tools, and children across a landscape this vast on their backs? Or did they invent a primitive system of transport long before load-carrying animals were domesticated or the wheel and cart invented? In a new archaeological discovery, we finally have an answer that proves the people who inhabited these lands were more innovative and thriving than anyone previously imagined. At White Sands National Park in New Mexico, archaeologists have uncovered ancient and deliberate drag marks running beside human footprints in Ice Age sediments. These marks reveal that people here more than 22,000 years ago were pulling a wooden travois, two poles lashed together, dragged behind a person to haul weight across the ground. This was not just the first known transport device in the Americas. According to current archaeological evidence, it appears to be the earliest known evidence of human-engineered load transport in the entire world, older than any other known vehicular human transport system. The setting for this discovery is the extensive gypsum sand dune field of the Tolosa Basin in south-central New Mexico. White Sands is today a vast white dune landscape, but during the late Pliocene, it hosted a very different environment. The basin contained a large, shallow body of water known as Lake Otero, which collected fine muds, silts, and evaporic sediments as it fluctuated with climate. Over time, the lake retreated, evaporated, and deflated, leaving alkali flats and sediment surfaces capable of capturing footprints and drag marks. These landscapes are fragile archives of movement. When a human walked across wet or slushy mud, their footprint might sink in fine sediment, then be rapidly buried by a silting event or desiccation, preserving the print for tens of thousands of years. Within this fossilized network, researchers recognized consistent types of drag traces. Some were narrow grooves, deeper than wide. Others were wider, shallow runnels. And the most striking were two parallel grooves running side by side for dozens of meters. In places, human footprints appeared directly between the two grooves, showing someone walking while dragging a frame behind them. In other areas, the drag marks cut across older footprints, revealing a sequence of movement. And critically, no animal prints accompanied the marks. These loads were not pulled by mammoths or ancient camelids, they were pulled by people. The spacing of the twin grooves matched what we would expect if two long poles were tied together at one end and pulled along the ground, exactly like a TPA. To understand the importance of this find, we need to explore the device under consideration, the travois, and its ethnographic and technological context. A travois is a transport frame, often built of wooden poles. Historically, among indigenous peoples of North America, especially in the Plains region, the travois was pulled by dogs and later by horses, loading items such as hides, domestic goods, children, or firewood behind the poles. The White Sands marks are interpreted as similar in principle, albeit without animal traction. The discovery was so compelling that researchers built replica travois sleds and dragged them across wet surfaces. The results were unmistakable. The experimental marks mirrored the ancient ones, confirming the interpretation through direct physical testing. To understand how significant this is, consider this context. No earlier travois marks have been found anywhere else on Earth at this time. There is no older archaeological trace of humans engineering a device of any type to move loads across land. Here in the Ice Age Americas, long before agriculture, before metal, before domesticated animals or wheels, humans invented a way to drag their entire world with them. But how are we sure that these drag marks are even this old? The dating of the White Sands drag marks was confirmed using multiple independent scientific methods. The first major line of evidence came from radiocarbon dating of tiny seeds belonging to Rupia serosa, an aquatic plant that once thrived along the shores of ancient Lake Oro. These seeds were found embedded in the same sediment layers that preserved the human footprints and travois drag marks. Because rupia plants absorb carbon while growing, including dissolved carbon from lake water, their remains act as biological clocks. When measured, the carbon in these rupia seeds consistently pointed to an age of roughly 21 to 23,000 years. However, because the plant was aquatic, some scientists suggested it could have absorbed older carbon dissolved in lake water, making the dates seem older than they really were, a known issue called the reservoir effect. To address this concern and verify the dates, researchers used additional methods. One of the most powerful confirmations came from optically stimulated luminescence, often referred to as OSL, which determines how long grains of sand and silt have been buried since they last saw sunlight. If the sediments had been disturbed or redeposited, the signal would be reset or inconsistent. Instead, the grains from the layers containing the drag marks showed a burial age consistent with the same late glacial period as the seed dates. Stratigraphy, the study of sediment layers, offered yet another line of evidence. At White Sands, the tracks sit inside an undisturbed sequence of lakebed sediments. The researchers mapped each layer, following it across the site, confirming that the drag marks and footprints were made on the same ancient surfaces and then buried naturally by lake processes, rather than intruded from younger deposits above. The radiocarbon dates on seeds, the stratigraphic context, and the OSL results all converged on the same general time period, strengthening confidence in the roughly 22,000-year age. Scientists also collected pollen samples from the same layers to cross-check environmental conditions. Together, these approaches create a layered, cross-verified dating framework. While scientific debate continues, as it always does in groundbreaking research, the overwhelming weight of evidence now points to humans living and transporting loads in North America during the peak of the last ice age, far earlier than once believed. This is not simply a technical matter, it fundamentally changes what we thought we knew about the human story in the Americas. For most of the 20th century, students learned that people arrived here no earlier than around 13,000 years ago, associated with the so-called Clovis culture. The White Sands footprints challenged that timeline, pushing the presence of humans back thousands of years earlier. Now, the drag marks go further, revealing not only that Ice Age humans were here, but that they had invented and used transport technology 22,000 years ago. This carries an even more profound implication. People do not step into a new continent one day and invent specialized tools the next. Innovation requires familiarity, experimentation, trial and error, a settling-in period. Even for nomadic societies constantly moving through vast landscapes, for them to perfect a travoy vehicular system capable of hauling loads across mudflats, they must have already been living here long enough to understand the terrain, the seasons, the behavior of animals, and the challenges of survival in this new world. This suggests that their arrival predates the footprints themselves, that they had been here much earlier, adapting, observing, and refining solutions before these tracks were ever imprinted in the mud. In the years ahead, as new excavations take place and dating techniques improve, we may discover other sites with similar drag marks, perhaps even find preserved parts of travoy frames or loads, or grooves in other continents that match these features. Future sequencing of sediments may even reveal traces of plants, animal DNA, or pollen trapped in the same mud, giving us insight into exactly what these early humans were hauling. Each new piece of evidence will help us better understand the logistics of early human movement. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, you can like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Until next time, keep exploring.